everybody, this is Perch, and there's been a lot of conversation about what people do and don't, what they do and don't know. And it started out when I did that video around people don't understand why you're angry with them. And then it's like, no, in their heart of hearts, they're lying to you. I know what they're thinking. It always bothers me, no matter who it is, no matter what the topic, no matter where people are coming from on it, when people start making a lot of assessments based on what they quote unquote just know. I just know this is true. I just know that I know they're saying one thing, but I know they're actually thinking something different. I think that's pretty arrogant, pretty dodgy territory to get into. And yes, you can have lots of evidence and you can certainly make your own conclusions and you can certainly act upon those conclusions, do whatever you like. And yeah, a lot of people do say one thing and then do the other or have ulterior motives. No doubt about it. But when people come into an argument with entire 100% certainty of what somebody actually is thinking and knowing, you're setting yourself up for a huge failure. You're setting yourself up to basically make a lot of judgments about things you may or may not know anything about. So there's been a lot of this, what's really in the hearts of people. And so we got this mail. It's not about that, but it is about kind of what don't people really see what's going on? It's kind of the crux of it. So this one is, do writers seriously not see the issue? So let me read this mail, which I think presents a good case for us to talk about. Here we go. It says, hey Perch, a comic has been making the rounds lately, Nubia and the Amazons. And I heard the roasts and honestly believe people were exaggerating the dialogue when people describe a comic as Yaaas slay queen. You're like, okay, I'm assuming that's not what the character said. But then I read the book and the roasts were real. The characters all talk like Tom Cruise giving a toast to L. Ron Hubbard. Jesus. It is honestly a little cult-like, and if this comic had come out in 2005, we'd be like, okay, that's brainworms controlling the league. Nubia is a shape-shifting villain. It's like the Hyper Clan. This is weird, right? How do writers not see this as weird? More of a comment than a question, but I'm sure you have comments of your own on this comic. And that's our mail. So, look, I think... do writers not see what's going on? I don't know. Because here's the problem. It's almost the wrong question. It's when a writer writes some of these characters as saying, Yaaas, queen, and that kind of stuff, and they're not being sarcastic, and they're not trying to make a parody of, I have no idea what Twitter speak, I'm not sure. Then what is the person thinking? Don't know. Honestly, it's hard to tell. There's a number of different options. Could they be just pissed off at life and hate everyone and trying to inflict this self-loathing on the world? Probably not that one, because it takes a lot of self-awareness to write at a masterclass level where you're actually intentionally just screwing with people through bad writing. That is some next level stuff right there. Most likely, unfortunately, the answer is both simple and stupid. And as the people who write like that are not getting outside much, and they have watched a number of YA kind of teen shows on Netflix, have failed to notice that several of those shows are being ironic kind of in their own ways, doing a parody of what people talk like, and decided, this is how kids talk, I will write like that. And there is a lot of that going on. There was a horn in the background. It was not for me, for what it's worth. I don't know if that came through the audio or not. I don't know. It's kind of amazing that there was one. In Texas, people don't use horns. They just randomly just crash into other people just for the fun of it. Anyway, I think I don't know. So the people who write like this, it is baffling. It is absolutely baffling when you see a comic come out like this. It's painful. The writing is terrible. It makes no sense. It doesn't, who is it for? Who knows? Nobody knows who this stuff is for. It's certainly not for people wanting to buy a comic and read it, because even in a like Netflix-like show, somebody going, Yaaas, queen, is one thing when you hear it. And, even if it's meant to be kind of a joke or ironic, whatever else, it is, it's one thing to say that in real life. It's another thing to write that down and then print that in a comic where the person reading it is having to say it and kind of, think through that logic. I mean, it doesn't work. this kind of stuff doesn't translate to comics. As much as you want comics to be a movie script or want comics to sound just like real life or just like the show you're watching, comics don't work like that. And so when you do it, it comes across as super goofy and weird. There's been a few different Scott McCloud. There's been a few different people who've commented on this. In many ways, comics can be analogous to movies and shows and real life, but in other ways, it is sequential art. And the person who's reading the comic is reading it in their own voice, not they don't have actors with voice talent who are doing these things. So it comes out super super goofy when writers write stories that use, and what also becomes extremely dated language to kind of it summarize a story. It comes across as super super weird, and sure enough, that's what happens here. It's super super weird. um I don't know. I some of these comics, yeah, Newbie and the Amazons, sure. The common thread that you find in a lot of these is that the writers claim to be experts at writing kids or writing younger adults. In this case, this is Vita Ayala, right? Is it Vita, or is it Stephanie Phillips, or is it Danny Lore? Like you'll notice though, every one of those names I just mentioned, they comment on how good they are at writing kids, that they know, and other people do too. It's not like they're pulling this stuff out of their own ass. They believe this and they're told this. You see other comic professionals going, this writer is excellent at writing kind of young teen characters. But if you then read the dialogue of these young teen characters, and for what it's worth, Newbie and the Amazons are neither young nor teen either, so that's a whole other issue. But when you read it, it's like it's the "Hello, fellow kids" meme. It doesn't map at all to what you're talking about. And I know some people have commented on like the super awkward, blocky dialogue in like Spawn, Batman, and some of these comics that have come out. And yes, there absolutely is. There's some almost alien AI bot like language coming out of that book. But holy smokes, it's some of these books, the books that are well written for teens, are 50 times worse. And so I I don't know. So do the writers, what are the writers thinking? What do they do? They think that they are writing like the shows they're watching on Netflix. They think that they're writing something that's really going to appeal to teens and young adults. That's what they think. And in many cases, if you look at the writers who have survived the test of time, gone on, you'll notice a common thread with them is they write in a more evergreen way. They don't throw out, you don't see Captain America show up like, "Where's the beef?" back in the 80s. You don't, all the writers who would write like Ghost Rider and Batman in his armor and all this kind of stuff in the 90s going, "Radical dudes, gonna," you don't see that. I was reading a comic. I think it was published kind of late 90s, and one of the heroes comes up to another hero and goes, "Hey, cool beans," and you're like, "Oh," you're reading this in 2020, going, "Wow," it's like the character's gonna stroll on in and listen to some Smash Mouth and Hootie and the Blowfish, and get some new rechargeable batteries for their Walkman, and everything will be great. It's just like you don't. If you write like that, it sounds clunky. And a lot of this stuff sounds like something that was popular. It's why I beat up on the whole Game of Thrones, bend the knee, all that kind of stuff on a regular basis. It's because this stuff ages terribly. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below if you have similar observations, and thanks for listening.